Hello, everybody. This is Jeff Morton again, your host for Let's Talk About It. I had to silence my phone here real quick. I want to thank you for joining us, and also all the people that are checking out what we're doing here in the playback. We do this live every Sunday now, but I do see people are watching the videos and certain things on YouTube and Facebook. What am I trying to say here? The show of course it's recorded, and you're also on my website, which is freefromfear.us. So I do appreciate it. We're always trying to bring the quality of the show up and also bring some entertaining guests in. So I would like very much for you, if you would like to be a guest on the program, you have something to talk about, just send me an email. You'll see that passed along the bottom. That's my website, Free From Fear. And then when you send me an email, I'll reach back out to you and we'll discuss a little bit about what you want to talk about. And I'd love to have you on the show. The show is more about, educating, entertainment, as well as bringing people on who are doing something constructive that make a difference. And I'm not talking about, somebody who's building a building. I'm talking about people that are impacting other people's lives. That's really what the show is all about. Let's talk about what you're doing to help other people. Somebody asked me why I'm always clearing my throat. I'm struggling sometimes. I'm not really struggling. One of the side effects of having had stage 4 cancer in the throat is I have a buildup of phlegm constantly. I'm constantly clearing my throat. My voice is a little different than it used to be. So that's kind of one of the things that you're hearing that I have to deal with. From what they tell me, I have to deal with it for the rest of my life. But anyway, that's what happens when I have to clear my throat. Today's show is going to be, I'm going to bring back a guest, Jim Ramm, who really has done a lot of research on the carnivore. He's got his hands in just about everything, whether it be in the political world, whether it be in the biblical world, whether it be in eating good. And he and I, much to my surprise, we've studied a lot of the same things. Now, he's going to talk a little bit about this whole cancer thing, how cancer is not a death sentence, so to speak. We're going to talk about carnivore. I did some research on all of this stuff, and what the American public doesn't realize is there were conglomerates, 75 years ago that paid to change the way we eat, to change what we consume. And as a result of that, Americans got sick. And now we've got managed care. And so Jim and I are on the same lane when it comes to understanding this. But the average person doesn't realize that how we eat, what we eat, and the stuff put into our food is all done by people for profit. Anyway, my guest Jim Ramm is going to be joining us again today. Jim, how are you doing today?
Oh man, I am just better than I deserve, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm good. I appreciate you wanting to come back on and talk about all of this. Love having you here. As I watch some of your stuff and just continue to get into what you've been researching out, you and I have done a lot of the same research, and I'm going to let you open it up. In particular, we started before the show talking about the cancer thing. Tell us a little bit about that whole cancer video that you were just explaining to me about. 5 hours long?
Yeah, it's 4 hours and 48 minutes, and I've been riveted to it. I've watched about an hour and a half at a time for the last couple of days. I was watching it just before I came up here to the studio, and it's done. I can't for the life of me remember the girl's name that did it right now, but I will try and get that information to you. It's called Standard of Care, and she got into it because her husband was diagnosed with cancer. And even though she had heard about so-called alternative methods of treatment, he was, like so many people, wrapped around the allopathic axle. And for people that don't know, allopathic medicine is what's practiced by medical doctors, MDs. And they look at the body as a bag of biochemicals just waiting to break, and their job is to put it back together The problem is they have no idea what causes illness, and they have no idea what cures illness. They only know what they're taught in medical school, which is which drugs to give to make money for them, the pharmaceutical companies, and to keep you alive while you're in their office. After that, it's a crapshoot. And this video is pretty much they interview several different people who have survived cancer by going to different treatment modalities other than allopathic medicine, because that stuff flat out doesn't work. If you live 5 years and 1 day, they consider you've been cured, and then you die the next day. And so what? You made it 5 years. That's all they look for anymore. And it's absolute joke. And the other sad part is the number of people, these doctors, that have stepped outside of the standards of care and found other things that actually work and are low cost, have no bad side effects like chemo and radiation and surgery do. And they are being relentlessly attacked by the American Murder Association, the AMA, Big Pharma, and the Federal Death Administration, or the FDA. They get SWAT teamed. All kinds of stuff happens to them. They get raided left and right. And one guy's been attacked for 40 years. He beats every single bunch. They leave, their kids come in, and it all starts all over again. And it's absolutely disgusting how, while you were talking at the intro, I was thinking about two things: the movie The Matrix, and when I was a kid looking at an anthill. If you ever, most little boys sometime in their life, they find a magnifying glass on a sunny day, and they find an anthill, and all of a sudden they get to choose which one lives and which one dies. That's what's going on with the American population. Well, pretty much all the industrialized world. We are the little ants, and the medical community, Big Pharma, the American Murder Association, are the ones that are using the ants for their benefit. And if you happen to survive their disgusting treatments, lucky you. But the rest, hey, no problem. They don't care. You're gone. And they basically have a license to kill. And it's, you see, so-and-so's in surgery. Oh, we did everything we could, but Marjorie just didn't make it. Probably the doctor screwed up, or it was a surgery that she didn't need in the first place, or it's something that could have been healed by some other modality that was totally natural. But somehow or another, she ended up in the operating room, and it's never the doctor's fault, but Marjorie just didn't make it. We did everything we could, but she just didn't make it. Like, put the blame on her, and they probably killed her, because most, the number one cause of death in this country and most industrialized nations is the medical system. Over 1 million people a year die at the hands of MDs, whether it's screw ups or properly prescribed stuff that just, they had a bad reaction, like Vioxx killed 60,000 people before the manufacturer took it off the market. The FDA never pulled it. But that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with the allopathic medical system. It's disgusting.
Well, I'm gonna kind of jump in here and tell you my story, because my story is one of success. And when I had the aneurysm, the medical profession, they opened me up and they saved my life. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, that was a win-win situation. When I had stage 4 cancer, they told me that, I might not make it through the surgery. 8.5 hours later, I made it through the surgery, and I'm cancer-free since 2010. Now, one of the things I did after the surgery is I went to plant-based everything, literally everything. I went plant-based. I went plant-based on juicing. I went plant-based on eating. I ate raw. Only thing I ate was fish. And all of those things started kicking my immune system up into high gear. And I never had an issue with the cancer since. Now, as I've been learning about carnivore, and we're going to get into a lot of that, I'm a success story of the medical profession, but I also know a lot of people particularly two very special people that we just lost to breast cancer, and their modality was to, go in and cut and chop up and then radiate and fill their body full of chemo. When I started learning that chemo is the number one profit center for doctors, I was astounded, and realizing that it kills good cells as well as some of the cancer, but it's a poison. They're poisoning your body.
Yeah.
So, and then I started talking to people that found other ways to beat cancer. And it kind of depends on what stage you're in at sometimes. But at the same time, I've talked to a lot of people who beat cancer and they didn't use the chemo. They didn't use the radiation. They used all the non-medical stuff. When the FDA says you can't say that this stuff works because they control that whole conversation.
Yep.
However, there's a lot of that stuff that does work. And I'm proof of that side too. When I talk to my medical doctors, one in particular that I can think of, in fact, all of them, every single doctor that I've ever brought this up with does not know anything about alternative medicines. They just don't know.
Yeah.
So you're right about, and I do because of what I do with this kind of stuff here and the research. When I went back and started learning about the American Medical Association, the American Cancer Society, and I started realizing what these things were doing, they were paying to change the entirety of how we consume products.
Yep.
And I'm going, oh my God. From the 1920s forward, America got sicker.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about managed care. Well, the bottom line is, there's a lot of people that'll say, yeah, this stuff works for me, but they don't understand the bigger picture. The bigger picture was we were trained like lab rats to be dependent on pharmaceutical drugs.
Yep.
We were trained. It was a training. If you turn on any television set, you're going to see at least 3 or 4 pharmaceutical commercials with names you cannot pronounce of medicines that have a plethora of side effects being the part of the medication your body is going to attack. It's crazy when we just grab the bottle and take the pill.
Yep.
We don't realize that there's a lot of things going on with these pills of synthesized medicine, these petrochemicals that are not going to solve your problem. They're going to manage it. So I'm with you on this. And I've done the research, and I don't care about the naysayers because there's good doctors, but then there's doctors that are just part of that whole system to change the way we consume products. They're clueless about what it's doing to your body. I mean, Jim, how many times a doctor gives a person a prescription and they're required by law to tell you the side effects,
but they never do.
And how many times do they tell you about the side effects?
Never.
If you don't ask, they don't tell you. And yet they make the bulk of their money on prescriptions.
Yep.
Go ahead. Your turn.
Yeah. And by the way, your aneurysm could have solved that with nutrition. That's a copper deficiency.
Well, I had a blood bleed and my head was full of blood. So
that's the thing.
To open me up.
They have to go in because it's a last minute deal. But sometimes they actually find it in the course of other things. They say, hey, you got an aneurysm. And if you catch it in time, you can reverse it with supplementation, because aneurysms, gray hair, white hair, spider veins, varicose veins, hemorrhoids, they're all caused by a deficiency of the mineral copper. And you put that back in along with a few other things, and everything goes back to normal. It's quite amazing. But it drives me crazy. And I watched another video here the other day too that was done by the same person, and it's called Boobs, of all things, the attack on women's breasts. And it deals with primarily breast cancer in general, but the methods that they use to detect it. And most women above the age of 35 have at least had one mammogram. And if there's one thing I could suggest, I'm not a doctor, I don't diagnose or anything else. If I was a woman, I would never, ever, ever have a mammogram. And I would strongly recommend before you do it that you do some research into them, because there are more effective ways of determining whether there's cancer in your breasts than a mammogram. Mammograms are self-fulfilling prophecies. If you get enough of them, you will get breast cancer. They actually cause breast cancer. And women who get them have like a 40 to 50% better, I don't want to say better, but their chances of getting breast cancer increase by 40 to 50% over those who've never had one.
Well, I have a friend who I went to school with. She was, just diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 2, she says. And, people, when they're told they have cancer, it's like it's almost an immediate death sentence in their mind.
Yeah.
And yet people don't know the alternative treatments. That's the thing about the American public, which continues to blow my mind. We are so comfortable that we don't know anything anymore.
Exactly.
And we don't research it.
Mm-hmm.
We just accept it.
That's one of the biggest problems. Most of us have heard that the old saying, we get the government we deserve. We also get the health care we deserve, because most people don't want to do anything. They don't want to be proactive. They want to be able to live their life. They want to do the things they want to do, eat the foods they want to eat. And then they just want to pay somebody to give them a pill to fix the problem that they're causing to themselves. And that's why we have allopathic medicine taking over everything, when in effect, the only thing they're good for is trauma cases. If you get run over by a bus or shot or have your arm ripped off in a farming accident, you want to go to an MD, because they can work miracles. Literally, they are fantastic when it comes to putting Humpty Dumpty back together. But when it comes to anything else, any chronic health issue, which there's 900 of them, including cancer, they suck. And they're the last person you want to go to them for anything other than diagnosis. They're great at telling you what you got. And if nobody ever saw it before, then they're great at naming it after themselves too. But they can't tell you what caused it, and they can't tell you what makes it go away. And that's the thing. If I ever felt bad, I might go to an MD to say, okay, do some tests and tell me what's going on. Once I have the answer, I'll say, thank you so much. See you later. I got it from here. And people that do that live a lot longer than people that don't. The people, and this is one of the things I've been working with Dr. Joel Wallach. Anybody who is old enough to remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, Dr. Wallach used to work with Marlin Perkins, the curator of the St. Louis Zoo. And he was one of the guys over in Africa that were darting the rhinos and saving them and doing this and doing that. But he was involved in a 12-year, $25 million federally funded study from like 1968 to 1980, somewhere in there. And he proved that there's 90 essential nutrients at every vertebrate. Goldfish, elephant, people, the whole shooting match. You got to have this every day. He literally wrote the book on nutrition, and it's in the Smithsonian Institute as National Treasure. One of the things that he found out during his research was that there's 28 societies around the world, or cultures, that live far longer. They have 40 times the 100-year-olds that we do. One every 500. And they're all in places that are high in the mountains. They have extremely short growing seasons. So just by the nature of where they live, they eat the carnivore diet. They eat meat from yak, rabbit, from goats, things that they can grow there. And they have a lot of fat in their diet, and they have very little carbohydrates. And those things, and one of the other things they have is lots and lots of minerals, because they drink water it's got glacial runoff. They call it glacial milk. It's as the glaciers move, it's grinding up rock and all that stuff. That's all minerals, and it's coming out and they're drinking it. And they are getting so much of the stuff that it's giving them not all 90 essential nutrients, but they're a whole lot farther along than most people. And it's not unusual to have people in those areas living to be 140, 150, 160 years old and still active. There's a guy, he passed away since, but his name was Shirali Mismaloff. He was in the it was the Caucasus Mountains in somewhere in eastern Russia. And when he was 167, he was out in the fields picking tea leaves. And when he turned 168, the news media came back to interview him, and he was out hoeing the garden to show how vigorous he was. You know, most people, if they can reach half that age, they don't want to do that kind of stuff. And this guy, I mean, he was working 7 days a week, 8 hours a day at that age.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Find me a vegan that has ever lived that long.
I got to tell you a funny story. This last week, I'm trying chiropractic care. I'm going to different chiropractors. So I go to this chiropractor. It's a female. First time I've ever gone to a female. We sit down and she starts questioning me. She's a nice lady. I mean, she's pretty sharp, actually. And I said, well, I've been doing this carnivore eating style. And she stopped me. She goes, do you know what kind of chiropractor I am? I said,
female.
I didn't know what she meant. She said, Jeff, I'm vegan. She said, I've never eaten meat in my whole life. She said, my father was vegan, she went on to say. So she said, I've never eaten meat. I don't even know what meat tastes like. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to talk about the carnivore diet. But it was just kind of funny because I've never gone to a woman, and she's really, I think her business and what she does is really sharp. She employs a lot of Chinese medicine and things of that nature. So she's kind of full service, not a pharmaceutical person, but she's not a meat eater. So I want to ask you a question about carnivore, because when I did go to the raw diet and I got my little Vita mixer or whatever it was called, and I would make these soups out of vegetables, and my immune system really went way up. Yeah. And that's all I ate. I ate a little bit of fish every once in a while, but most everything I ate was raw or slightly steamed. Yeah. And it was all vegetables and herbs. Well, to me, that they said if your cancer does resurface, it'll be more in your chest area. So they monitored me for 5 years, like you said. And nothing. I was very healthy. I lost a whole bunch of weight too, by the way. I think I lost 70 pounds back then, just eating raw or uncooked. Everything I ate was not cooked except for fish. Right. I can't do sushi.
Give it time.
But no, I tried it a couple of times. I can't do it. I can eat tuna fish out of a can, but I can't eat sushi. Okay. So for me, because of those experiences, to go carnivore, and I've kind of hit and miss since the last time we did the show, it goes against everything that I know. Right. But as I watch the videos, and I've watched a ton of videos of success stories with just eating carnivore, and we're talking about butter and eggs and
animal
these
products.
People, they've beaten their health problems. They're healthier. They've lost their weight. I mean, there's a ton of videos to watch with regard to this. I also had some friends say to me, we talked to our nutrition about it. We're not going to get involved in that. So it depends on where you look for the information and what's believable, in my opinion. But I need you to tell the folks your experiences about this and the experiences of other people that you know about carnivore.
Well, I first found out about it. I had never heard of carnivore per se until last October. And prior to that, I was strongly considering the ketogenic diet, which is basically carnivore with some vegetables and things. And it's a great diet too. As a matter of fact, it's one that has been recommended. The allopathic community will use that as a last resort for somebody who's epileptic. When someone comes into them that's epileptic, they'll put them on all the drugs. They have to go through the standards of care. They got to do all the drugs down the line and maybe even some surgeries. And if none of that works, then they'll say, well, you might try this. It's the last resort, called the ketogenic diet. And it's basically 75% fat, 20% protein, and 5% carbohydrates. And the interesting thing is it will take care of epilepsy every single time. And instead of saying, okay, you're epileptic, this is what you need to do right off the bat. Instead of doing that, they'll load them up with all kinds of drugs and put them through years and years of more misery. And then they'll finally put them on that diet. Because what they need is a high fat diet. That's the problem. Same thing for people like folks with multiple sclerosis, ALS, Parkinson's. If you get on a high fat diet with nutrition, and I stress that enough because people don't realize, no matter who you talk to, they all say, well, if you eat this way, you'll get everything you need. And it's a lie. Even with carnivore, you cannot get the stuff you need without supplementing. So that's why I call my protocol Nutrivore, even though somebody else allegedly already has the name, but they're not doing anything even close to this. The carnivore diet, because you're cutting out the carbohydrates that are not essential. You must have fat, you must have protein. There's no requirement whatsoever for carbohydrates. The other problem with for people that are on the vegan and vegetarian stuff, there are certain things that you cannot get. And cholesterol is one of them. And if it wasn't for the fact that your body can make some cholesterol, it would be considered an essential nutrient. And that's the stuff that 75% of your brain by weight is cholesterol. So when someone calls you a fathead, that's actually a what do you want to call it?
I've been called a fathead my whole life. So.
Yeah, that's actually that's a good thing. And your nerves, all the insulation on your nerves, the myelin sheath is cholesterol. If you don't have cholesterol in your diet, you're not going to have enough to support the needs of the body, and you're going to start having misfires in your nervous system. You're going to start having issues with your brain, and that's where the real cause of Alzheimer's is lack of cholesterol.
So let me back up. Yeah,
go ahead.
You've been doing this since last October. Mm-hmm. How is it that you have this much knowledge a year later?
Well, it's because most of this stuff came before I even found out about carnivore.
Oh,
most of what I'm talking about, I learned from Dr. Wallach, because this guy has reversed virtually every disease known to man with nutrition and nutrition alone. I know people personally who had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, had gone through this stuff with all the allopathic things, was told, go home, get your affairs in order. There's nothing more we can do for you. And then they started researching. And that's one of the big problems with people. It's not until the allopathic community basically, washes their hands of them that they finally start looking at other options. And I know people personally who, when they got a hold of Dr. Wallach and started taking his nutritional products, and within 90 days, they were cancer-free, and they're alive years and years and years after their doctors told them they were going to die from pancreatic cancer, which is a death sentence.
My brother died of pancreatic cancer. So,
yeah.
They said he would die. They said he would live for 90 days. He lived for 91 days.
And they would consider that a success. That's what's crazy about it. But if the thing is, the core thing that your body needs more than anything is those 90 essential nutrients. And when your body has those things, it can make your immune system will function properly. Your elimination system will function properly. I know people that I know a physician who was one of the first naturopathic doctors that did EDTA chelation for heavy metal toxicity. When he started working with Dr. Wallach, he started putting his new patients on a 90-day protocol. He tested them first to see where their levels were. He put them on 90 days of nutrition. When they came back after that, if they were doing it properly, he'd test them again, and all their problems were gone. All those heavy metals that they normally have to chelate out were all gone, because once the body has what it needs, it can fix itself.
I do believe that. It's just knowing what that is. Tell your story.
Well, boy. I retired from police work in 1996, weighed 175 pounds, weighed 34-inch waist pants. And I was running 4 miles a day. I set up the bicycle patrol at the police department. I was riding probably You know, it's funny, in a police cruiser in our small town, you'd average maybe 10 to 15 miles a night in a cruiser. I'd put 50 miles on my bike in a night, just, you know, riding around town. And I was in good shape. And when the big problem was I didn't know a thing about nutrition at that point. And I started having problems with gastric reflux in the early 90s. And I went to an MD. They put me on, you know, I ended up on Prilosec. And basically, that is the gateway drug to virtually every other problem that you can imagine. If they can get you on Prilosec, guaranteed you're going to have all kinds of other issues, because what it does is it stops the production of stomach acid. Right. Without stomach acid, you cannot digest nutrients, especially minerals, which are 2/3 of the daily requirement. And when that happens, everything goes down the tubes. And my problem started out with a calcium magnesium deficiency. That's what caused my gastric reflux. After I was put on the Prilosec, I started developing arthritis, another calcium magnesium deficiency. I started having sleep problems, another calcium magnesium deficiency. And the list it started snowballing. Plus, I was gaining weight, because when you can't digest, the one thing you can do is absorb calories. And when I wasn't running as much anymore and I wasn't riding my bike as much, all of a sudden I'm putting all this stuff on. And by 2010, 2012, I was up to 240 pounds. And
you know, I just hold your thought, put your finger on the thought, because Prilosec and I forget the other one, they destroy calcium.
Yeah.
They stop the production of calcium in your body. So
they don't stop the production, because your body doesn't produce calcium. Calcium's a mineral and it only comes from the soil, but it stops the absorption of calcium.
Right. Okay. Thank you for correcting me on that, because
I knew. Yeah, you can't get it into your system.
I read somewhere where that's one of the side effects.
Yeah, it's not just calcium; it's the other 59 minerals. None of them go in, and it just drastically reduces it. So what little bit you're getting in, especially if you're believing the crap from the doctors that you can get everything you need from eating your 4 main food groups, what little you're going to absorb is nowhere near what you need. And you're going to start developing any one of or more of 900 chronic health issues: high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, macular degeneration, arthritis. The list goes on and on and on and on. And it wasn't until in 2012 I found out about Dr. Wallach back in the 90s, but I couldn't track him down. I got one of his tapes. A lot of people have. They're called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And I got one of those tapes, and it made so much sense to him, but I couldn't find him. And it wasn't until 2010 that I tracked the guy down and found out the name of his company, and I started looking at it more closely. And in 2012, I actually got on board heavy, because I had AFib at that point. My heart was jumping around like I was trying out for the Olympic gymnastics team. Blood pressure was 185 over 120 for like 5 years.
Why did all that start happening?
Calcium magnesium deficiency. Every single one of those things is caused by those 2 minerals being, and a few other cofactors, but all of that stuff being, not available to my body, even though, I was getting some, but because of the Prilosec, I couldn't digest it and absorb it. So
how long did you take Prilosec?
From 91 until 2012.
Wow.
Yeah. And I also developed arthritis in my low back. It was so bad I couldn't bend over the sink in the morning and splash water on my face. It hurt so bad. And I was taking NSAID pain relievers on a daily basis to kill the pain. But what people don't realize, because nobody ever tells you this, NSAID pain relievers eat cartilage, especially in your knees. So both my knees were bone on bone by the time I found that out. So I get on board with Wallach's protocols. By that time, I had AFib, I had sciatica, I had arthritis in the back. Both knees were bone on bone. I was 70 pounds overweight, sensitive teeth, floaters in the eyes, and a boatload of other. You can go to my website, yourdiyhealth.com, and click the Who Am I tab, scroll to the bottom. You'll see a short list of the things I had. And in 30 days' time, my blood pressure went from 185 over 170 or 185 over 120 to 99 over 77. Hasn't been a problem since. sciatica, arthritis pain, everything gone, had total range of motion again. The only thing that took longer was it took 3 months to rebuild my knees from bone on bone so I could go up and down the stairs 2 at a time and throw away my cane and stop limping. And rebuilt all the cartilage.
Most people have knee surgery and they get a fake knee.
Yep. And the thing is,
do that.
No, I didn't do that. And the thing is, my wife is an RN, and she worked for the last 35 years in total hip and knee replacement surgery. And for like 5 years before that, you need to get those fixed, you know. And I said, I'm sticking with what God gave me, and I'm going to find a natural way to fix it. It's impossible. My doctor said you can't regrow cartilage. Well, number one, they're idiots. Number two, in all fairness to them, when all you're using is steroids and pain relievers and junk like that, you can't. But when you give the body the raw materials it needs to make those things, we've seen cartilage regrow on fake knees. As long as there's blood supply to the joint, you can regrow cartilage if you're giving the body what it needs. And our products do that. I had my AFib was gone. You know, AFib is not a heart problem. It's a back problem. You know, everybody is age.
My daughter,
they get shrunk.
Hang on a second. My daughter's let me know that I have an echo.
Uh-oh. Really? I'm not noticing here on this end for once.
Yeah, I hear it now, actually.
Huh.
Thanks, Micah, for letting me know. I don't know how we fix that, Carol. Let me back this out. I'm going to back my sound out because I want you to run that video here in a minute.
Okay.
In fact, why don't you run that video while I figure this out?
All right. Let me see if I can. I got to get out of this. I'm full screen here. Hopefully. Hit the present button. And I wonder if it.
You guys? Carol, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Oh, this thing will let me play it right through the system. That's cool. Well, if you want me to play that video, I'll go ahead and do that. You want me to go ahead and play it? No, you can't hear me.
You guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
I'm still echoing, but I'm going to go ahead and play your video, okay?
Okay. Here, I think this is, well, it's grayed out. You may have to enable me to share it, I think.
I think I can.
Good for her.
Here we go.
And yeah,
wait, pause it.
Because if you had have told me when...
Can you give some background on this video, Jim?
Yeah, basically all I have is I just found this the other day, and this is Jordan Peterson. Most people know who he is. And I don't know much about his background, but I know he's a very outspoken guy. I really like him. He's smart as a whip. But he is discussing this carnivore diet with this other gentleman who apparently is interviewing him, and that guy's wife is embarking on carnivore. And I guess he found out that Jordan does the carnivore diet. And I think it's been for like 7 years that he's been eating carnivore. And that's basically what this is about. They're just a quick discussion of, you know, the things he's experienced and what it does for you and that kind of stuff. So if you want, we can go ahead and start her.
Well, I love Jordan Peterson, so go ahead. Let's take a peek.
Here we go.
We got married that one day you'll just be eating meat. I think you'd die from that. You need vegetables, you need fruits.
Yeah,
you need
right. No, you don't. I know. It's weird. It's hard to believe.
So she was on a ton of medication, like hospitalized all the time, couldn't figure it out. And then, after about 3 months, it was like no more meds at all.
Wow.
And I said this before we were recording, but she reassures me, like, I'm not doing this to be cool. I really don't want to eat like this. But when she doesn't, so she had a bit of chicken, had a little bit of soy on it. She was sick for a week in bed. Is that kind of like yourself or?
Close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough. A lot of things that were wrong with me have disappeared. Things that were very long-standing. Things that don't heal. I had gum disease, which never heals. It's 100% gone, and it was very serious. And that's a marker for cardiovascular inflammation, right? It's not just, some trivial problem with your teeth. Not that that's trivial, because
Yeah.
it's not. But that's not curable, and it's gone 100%. Took about 3 years. Long time.
So how long have you been doing carnivore?
Oh, 7 years.
My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you still miss food?
Of course. Yeah, it's very restricted. Yeah. Most things I don't miss. I miss dairy and
That's what.
like sugar. Sweet. I miss sweet ice cream, for example, has been a real problem.
So that's what she knows she needs to cut out now, because she's been doing steak and sticks of butter in
Yeah.
hot water.
Yeah.
And then I think she needs to cut out the milk, because that's the,
Could be.
yeah. But this brings us to an interesting point, because I mentioned that 10 years ago, if you had said this is a viable diet,
Yeah.
no one would have believed you. Here's the point. In the internet,
Just shows you what we know about nutrition. All the nutrition science is rubbish. All of it. Partly because they don't ever do randomized trials. Like, so how can you can see what people eat, you can correlate with an outcome. It's completely useless. It's completely misleading. You have no idea because there's nothing controlled. People who eat more beef have more heart disease. It's like, yeah, what else are they doing? Well, 1,000 other things.
yeah.
Well, how do you control for all 1,000? Well, you do random assignation to group. It's the only way to control it. There's no other way. The correlational studies are useless. They're useless, and there's hundreds of them. And, the idea that you need fiber, it's like, no, you don't. That's wrong. And are plants necessary? Doesn't appear to be. You can live on meat. Carbohydrates, there's no recommended daily allowance for carbohydrates. 0. There's no
Okay, that's the halfway point. If you want, we can watch the rest, or we can. It's about 3 minutes more, or we can continue on and comment on what he was talking about. Take your pick.
Well, why don't you go ahead and make some comments? Am I still echoing? Yeah. I don't hear my echoing anymore, so I think that's a good thing.
Well, I've been lucky. I haven't heard it yet, so that's good. But basically, what he's saying is pretty much right on the money, with a few exceptions. What he was talking about, nutrition being rubbish, is 99.9% right, as I don't think he knows about Dr. Wallach. Wallach's studies have been rock solid, and it's backed with, I forget how many, 10,000 autopsies, 10 million blood chemistries and hemopathologies, anyway, histologies. I can't remember the exact term, but anyway, his science is backed up solid, and he's seen the proof both in humans and in animals. He's found type 2 diabetes in alligators and fish. If they're not getting what they need in the wild or in captivity, they're going to have the same health problems. He's totally disproven the garbage about genetic diseases. There's no such thing as a genetic illness, and he's written a whole book about it called Epigenetics: The Death of the Genetic Theory of Disease Transmission. The guy has published like 75 times in different things. He's written, I forget how many books, close to 24, and he's rock solid on the nutritional stuff. But the problem is physicians don't get nutritional training. At best, they get 2 hours of so-called nutritional training that's taught by another doctor who doesn't have any nutritional training. So what they do get is worthless. Anytime I hear somebody, I had one of that cancer video I've been watching, they had some people talking at one point about how they were counseled by a nutritionist and telling them, make sure that one of the things they said is cook your meat thoroughly. And that's one of the worst things you can do if you want to avoid cancer. Now, if you want to get cancer, cook it well done. You have 462% more likelihood of getting cancer if you eat well done meat as opposed to red, pink in the center, rare, medium rare. And I know that's hard for a lot of people, but when you cook meat to that point, the fat gets burned, and that produces heterocyclic amines that cause their inflammatory and carcinogenic. So that's one that you do not ever want to, if you're doing carnivore, you never want to cook your meat well done. It should be red, at least pink on the inside, and avoid grill marks whenever possible, because those grill marks, that's burnt meat, and that's carcinogenic. So those are some things you want to watch. But for the most part, he's pretty much on the money. And there's nothing wrong with dairy for most people. Now, some people will have some issues if you have a lot of problems. Some people have a lot of problems with phlegm. That comes from dairy, and it's a question of whether you want to deal with it or not. But for the most part, dairy comes from an animal. Butter, I've never heard anybody doing carnivore, especially the so-called authorities, the doctors and whatnot, that say anything bad about butter. Butter's fantastic. Butter contains butyric acid, which is fantastic for your heart, for your blood vessels, and that kind of thing. It's just absolutely amazing. And this is another thing that we run into. What's that?
Okay, I'm echoing again. I think one of the things, I quit eating margarine about 25 years ago because it's just one chemical away from plastic.
Yeah.
And then we hear all this stuff about butter and how butter's killing people. And I'm going, no, it's not. It's healthier for you.
You can't patent a natural occurring item.
I'm sitting here listening because I have the same issue in the biblical world with what we've been taught versus what's actually the truth. And then, as I started learning about intake of food and whatnot, it's like we're duped in so many areas of our normal everyday life. I'm just sitting here fact checking all the stuff in my head, thinking almost everything we're talking about is based on controlling as opposed to healing.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in the biblical world. It's just there's a dichotomy to both, and I'm sitting here processing a whole lot of stuff right now. Yeah, I do want to watch the rest of that video, but very interesting stuff here. In fact, this show is more meaningful to me than the first show we did, especially with the Jordan Peterson. Yeah. I love Jordan Peterson. I think he's a sharp guy, brilliant person. Yeah, but I do want to finish watching the video. But it's like all of the stuff that we were told to eat, breakfast cereals that are just basically disguised lumps of sugar, processed sugar.
Oh, it's just, I'll tell you, look into the history of Kellogg and Post and when they first started their push for breakfast cereals. Before that, it was bacon and eggs mostly, or eggs. If you ate anything, a lot of times it was just leftovers from dinner the night before. You take a scoop of whatever's left in the pot and you eat it before you go out. And it was around World War II, if I'm not mistaken, when they started pushing the breakfast cereals. And that's when you start seeing people start plumping up and having other kinds of health issues. Everything, you got to remember, it's the old follow the money. When they start demonizing something, like Crisco. Crisco started out as a lubricant for diesel engines in the German Navy.
I knew that.
And it was passed on because they couldn't make enough money there. It was too small of a niche. So they tried to sell it in Britain and they wouldn't do it. So Procter & Gamble buys it and decides they're going to try and make food out of it. And back in the early 1900s, they basically paid $1.7 million to the American Heart Association to engage in a disinformation campaign, demonizing animal fats and promoting the healthy vegetable fats and shortening. And that's where Crisco started. And heart disease was hardly known until people started switching over to this stuff. And then heart disease exploded. They're always, when they push something like that, it's always to make money. They could care less about the health of the people eating it. It's making money, period. Whether it's drugs or food or anything.
My daughter's listening to the show and she's doing carnivore, but this is very, very good. We've got 10 minutes left in the show roughly, so I want to get back to the video and watch the rest of it. Okay. And then we'll let you close out the show. All right, Jim?
All right, here we go.
Recommended daily allowance. You don't need them. They're not vital. So can you run on protein metabolism? Yes. Does your brain prefer it? Yes. Does it reduce seizure activity? That's been known for a century. So,
yeah,
I talked to a psychiatrist at McLean's Hospital. So that's the premier psychiatric institute in the U.S. He's starting a treatment center at McLean's based on essentially on a carnivore diet to treat endogenous depression, right? So that's depression that has no obvious stress-related cause, manic depressive disorder, and schizophrenia. I have never believed those were psychological diseases. I thought, no, there's something wrong, especially with schizophrenia and manic depressive disorder. Well, depression too, for that matter. We know that it's associated with inflammation. That's been known for a long time. So he thinks they're metabolic diseases, and he thinks he can treat them with the carnivore diet. You know, so there are serious people taking a look at this. And then there's all the, you know, people say, well, anecdotes aren't data. It's like, fair enough, but when you have like 2,000 or 3,000 of them, they're suggestive of a hypothesis. That's right. You know, you're going to derive your hypotheses from observation.
Yeah. When I interviewed my wife and we talked about her carnivore diet, you know, you're used to getting people snarky and contradicting in the comment section. You know, that's where people go to do that sort of thing. But I'd say 99% of people who had the exact same story as her. Yeah.
Well, and I've met literally hundreds of people on my tour. You know, they show me pictures. I lost 150 pounds in 1 year. Like, they're shell shocked, right? Yeah. Well, when I started it, I lost 50 pounds in 7 months. You know, and I had gone for a year before that. I ate no sugar and I didn't lose an ounce. Nothing, which was very disappointing, you know. I didn't gain any weight, but I didn't lose it, you know, and I'd gained weight. You know, people gain weight as they age, pound a year, let's say. Well, you know, over 40 years, so I was about 50 pounds heavier than I am now. It all disappeared in 7 months. It was shocking. You know, I have the same physique that I did when I was 25. It's like, that's pretty good. I'm 60. I gained muscle mass. It's ridiculous.
So I did it for the month of January and I gave up. Even though I felt better, I could recall things faster. I decided I don't need to do this. I don't want to do it. So I don't want to be optimal. Was basically what I concluded, because I would rather have a beer every now and again or something else. But I actually got really sick of meat. In the beginning, I loved it. Absolutely. As red as you can get it. And then I had this, I don't know what they call it, like meat phobia, meat fatigue. I don't know. I got to a point where the idea of eating meat was disgusting. Did you go through that?
No, I wouldn't say so. I've been fortunate to not have that happen. That kind of happened to Michaela, my daughter, when she was pregnant. But, you know, people's food preferences tend to change dramatically when they're pregnant. So God only knows what that means. No, I don't get tired of meat. And like,
great.
And, you know, the diet could be worse. I could be eating nothing but porridge.
Yes.
You know, if you have to eat one thing.
Yeah. Steak will do.
Well, right.
And that's basically the end of that.
Appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yeah, no problem.
I haven't seen that.
It's interesting that, you know, he's the first person I ever heard said they got sick of eating meat. And at one point he mentioned something, at least I think he said it. I thought I heard him say it lean as could be. You do not want lean meat. You want fatty cuts of meat as much as you can get. If you don't, you want to add in fat, whether it's from bacon grease or butter. You know, every time I have a steak or a hamburger, I put butter on top of it and just let it melt onto it.
Me too.
You know, every Friday I go to a buddy's house about 15, 20 miles away, and I make a half a pound of bacon and put it in a mug and take it with me, and I munch it on the trip. And when I get down, when the bacon's gone, I take that mug and drink whatever drippings are left in there. All the bacon grease goes down the hatch. I'm not going to waste any of that, because that's the important stuff. The fat is the key thing in the carnivore diet. You want 70% fat, and then 25% the meat and the protein and that kind of stuff. But the fat is extremely important. And the more you do that stuff, the easier it is. I was talking to somebody here recently about eating butter and drinking bacon grease. They go, "Ooh,
I just had the same reaction."
You know, when I was in college, when somebody was drunk, one of the things we said, "You look like you could use a nice tall glass of butter." And it was about enough to throw them over the edge, and they'd start hurling. But you know, the thing is like, you know, like I said, Wallach's research, for years and years and years, people have been eating the carnivore diet in those areas that have the longest lived populations on the planet. They've been eating meat, they've been eating fat, and very, very little carbohydrates. And they've been getting the minerals. And those people live the longest. They have virtually no cancer, no disease, no nothing, until they come to the lower 48 or, you know, the rest of the world and eat like the rest of the people do. They go back home and all the disease goes away. They don't get sick. find me. I understand the position of people that want to do veganism or vegetarianism, but it's not a complete thing. You're not going to get what you need. And there are only a couple of people I found so far that live to be at least 100 years old that claim to be carnivores, not their entire life, but for the last 20, 30 years or something. I have yet to find a carnivore, or excuse me, a vegan or vegetarian who's been that way since they were weaned off their mother's breast milk. You will not find one. They just don't live that long. I'm talking about somebody that does that for the entire life and lives to be at least 100 years old. They're everywhere in the carnivore realm. That
well,
in
we
and of
got,
itself is
got
true.
about 4 minutes left, Jim. Tell people about your website and where can people learn about Dr. Wallach?
Oh, okay. Well, my website's scrolling across the bottom right now. It's YOURDIY, like do it yourself, health, HEALTH, yourdiyhealth.com. And I have my radio shows listed there under the radio shows tab. I have information on Dr. Wallach. You can get Dr. Wallach's books at DRJ Wallach. That's WALLACH.com, drjwallach.com. And that's where his books and videos and CDs are available. I'm trying to think right now. I believe he is still on Genesis Broadcasting as far as his daily radio shows. It's Dead Doctors Don't Lie. It's 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. And he has another one. I can't remember the name of it. It's a couple hours earlier, but he's in his like 85, 86 years old, and he's still traveling all over the place, giving lectures all the time, and just a dynamo, and has never had pharmaceutical drugs. He's been just doing the right stuff pretty much his whole life and trained at it. Yeah, if you go online, you can find Dr. Wallach. You'll find all kinds of people saying he's a quack. And of course, they're medical deities that don't have, any kind of record of healing people. But I'll take the guy who can take somebody that's legally blind for 10 to 12 years with macular degeneration, have him reading a paper without glasses in 90 days with his nutritional products. I've seen it happen. And we can take a type 2 diabetic, 90 days. Of course, you can do the same thing with carnivore. There's so many things that you can get rid of just doing carnivore. That's, it's unbelievable. But, and we can probably do another show on that.
No, actually, I was going to mention, having you come on every once in a while, I'm finding out is encouraging to me. I am type 2, but I've been doing more carnivore than not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm encouraged again today, in particular after seeing the Jordan Peterson thing.
Oh yeah.
To get back into the swing of eating just the beef. Of course, I don't eat pork. Every time I eat pork nowadays, I get sick, so I don't eat it. But I do eat the eggs and I do eat the beef. In fact, I'm going to go cook some beef right now. But I'm encouraged. You've encouraged me today to get back in the saddle. And because I'm realizing, and I hope the audience, people who watch the show later on, realize that all you got to do is go look at any old reel from, like, I put one on my Facebook page earlier today. Mm-hmm. You will be hard pressed to see any obese people walking around in the 1910, 1920s. They just didn't exist.
Do a beach picture from the 1970s compared to a beach picture today. It's like Free Willy today, man. Rolling back in the water. Everybody.
That's probably. I have actually just now realized I saw a picture like that of a beach in New York City in the 70s. There weren't a lot of fat people.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about done here. We're kind of done. Jim, please come back. This has been very good.
I'm happy to come back anytime you want. Just have Carol get a hold of me and we'll do it. We'll never run out of things to talk about.
No, you don't. And it's good information. People just have to realize you eat what you believe. And it's been a struggle for me. I will tell you that, because I went from this way of thinking to this way of thinking, and I can hear positive results on each side.
Yeah.
I've got some issues that I need to beat, and the carnivore thing from all of the videos I've watched is going to help me beat this diabetes.
Oh, yeah. Guaranteed.
All right,
Most
folks.
people are within 90 days, they're former diabetics.
Well, that's it, folks. We're done for today. I want to thank you for joining us on Let's Talk About It. And also, if you want to be a guest on the program and you have something to talk about that's relative to helping other people, I'd love to hear from you. My email is jsmorton@protonmail.com. You can contact me there. Check out my website, freefromfear.us. I'll be doing a lot more stuff on that website. That's kind of like where I journal my life and things that are important to me. But we'll be back next week, same time, 3:00 PST, Pacific Standard Time on Sundays. So thanks again. Appreciate you being with us today. All right, we're all done. Thank you, Jim.